Welcome to Sounds Like a Plan, Aurora. We've wanted to have you on the podcast ever since we started, so it's a real pleasure to finally catch up with you.
Oh, thank you for having me.
You've often spoke about your deep connection with all things nature and wildlife, the natural environment and Mother Earth. And I wondered if you'd start by telling us a little bit about your surroundings growing up and how that informed that deep relationship that would go on to grow.
Well, I think it certainly helps to grow up next to nature the way I did, because I grew up in the middle of it, very untouched by people. I grew up experiencing how perfectly divine nature just is in itself when people stay away. And I think, I don't know, I learned quite early that the world wasn't always so suitable for me. Or I had friends at school and I enjoyed, I guess, being at school, but I never found peace there, and I always felt very out of place and very nervous and anxious, and nature did the opposite to me. It did. It mended every wound, and it calmed down every ounce of stress within me. So I guess nature was and is my best companion and friend. Is very important.
Yeah. Now that you've started to tour again, like the world's opening up, you know, obviously following the pandemic, and so you're back out playing concerts and things like that. When you get home and you've got your suitcase, you drop it down on your bedroom floor, where's the first place you think of to go and get some fresh air, some sort of peace of mind? Is there a particularly special place for you?
Oh, well, now, sadly, I live in the city now, which I hate. But I have incorporated a lot of nature within my house. So there's a lot of plants, and there's a lot of imaginary that kind of, what do you call it, when it's an illusion of nature on the inside? Yes. So I'm trying to make my own small oasis within my home, because I do much prefer nature without the people, because whenever I know that I might meet even one person on a hike, it kind of ruins the experience for me, because it's also very much the absence of people that makes nature, to me, very important when it comes to reconnecting with my source, you know, with my inner source. But so I stay inside with all the nature I've brought within my home. But if I have enough time, I usually jump on a boat, and I sit on the boat for 2 hours, and then the boat takes me to a small place with huge mountains and hills and waterfalls. It's never completely quiet there, because it's always, you're always accompanied by the waterfall, and it's amazing because it's so massive but still such a natural behind kind of noise, which no noise that comes from people or the world we live in now is like that. Like nature can be so loud, but it still offers so much space for you to make your own noise. I don't know. Oh, it's amazing. But yes, at home, or I go somewhere, and I become more myself than I remembered I could ever be, if that makes sense. It's so important. Like now, I'm in an exceptionally good mood today, as you can see. And when I told you about how I'm feeling today, I told you that it feels like I'm in love, because I just came home 2 days ago from one of these journeys where I went out to the mountains and just experienced myself within nature alone, and it fills my soul in the most amazing way. And it's for free, and it's there, and it's just waiting for you to find it, and it's just the most wonderful, beautiful offer. Yeah, so I'm filled up.
Yeah, I think people connect with that sense, don't they? Of like, what do people say? Go out into nature and recharge your batteries, and it's like your expression about like filling your soul. It's almost like you need that to step back into the mechanical world to operate. Otherwise, you sort of like can just endlessly feel exhausted.
Yeah, definitely. And I really identify with that thing of you're perfectly happy in nature, and then you spot another human, and suddenly like the energy completely changes. Instead of being, when you're in nature alone, it's almost like you don't exist.
It is.
You're just part of things. And as soon as there's another person, you're suddenly a persona, and you've got this human to human thing to think about and navigate and all of that stuff.
And I think it really changes the dynamic, because what Mother Earth has perfected through all her many years of existing is how to simply coexist with everything, and that's an art humankind certainly haven't perfected yet, how to just coexist with each other. And I think that for me is the biggest change when you meet a person in nature, that suddenly there's an element that reminds you of the fail art of coexisting together here, which is a bit sad, but also I guess nice to meet. Obviously people are often kind, but you know what I mean. Introverts unite. Woo.
You use the expression Mother Earth there, which is something I've heard you say before. Like, what's your relationship like with her at the moment? Is it kind of, we've just talked about the local and like how when you're at home, what you do to kind of immerse yourself in nature. The bigger global picture, how are you feeling at the moment about Mother Earth and her health?
I always have hope, and whenever I answer any question about how I feel about Mother Earth's current state and the world and everything, I always answer that I'm very hopeful, because people are at least acting, people are thinking, trying to learn, and even if it's a trend, at least it's a trend that does something good. So I have a lot of hope, but I also feel the sense of emergency. Which kind of hangs over your shoulders like a heavy blanket, which is very sad. And especially when you look at the world and you see, like always, the people who are mostly affected by this horrible emergency of global warming is again the people who have done the least to deserve to be affected in such inhumane and catastrophical ways. It's really heartbreaking, because it's always the ways of the world, and the people who should change and who are doing the most damage are again, unaffected. And it's a very interesting thing that it's always like that, and it really prevents, I think, the world from going as quickly as it could have gone in the right direction. But I'm feeling hopeful, and I'm longing towards Mother Earth more than ever, and even just meeting people around the world when I travel that understands her. Like, I feel I understand her, so at least I can connect to her through the conversations I have with people, which is very inspiring and important. Yeah, because if everything goes to hell, this music career, I quit school when I was 16. I have nothing else to do, and you never know how long you can do.
Yeah.
No.
But I always know that if I can just live somewhere in the middle of nowhere and have a farm or do, just, I don't know, there's always a place to go and to be really happy, because nature offers so much happiness, and I just love that it's such a safety blanket you can always fall back on, because you can always find incredible happiness amongst nature.
That's great. And something that struck me when you were talking at the start about growing up and you didn't feel like you fit in, I think there's a lot of people, especially post-pandemic, who are feeling very lonely, very isolated, very separate. Would you recommend really diving into nature as a way to feel, just to get a breather from it maybe, or to feel connected to something bigger than, the next person? Or
Yes, definitely. And going on, I feel independence, going on a journey or a little adventure on your own, either travel somewhere or rent a bicycle, do something that you don't usually do, and do it alone, and learn how to know yourself in new spaces where people haven't already put you in a box. Learn to reconnect with yourself also in a place where you can grow in a completely free and uncharacteristic or spontaneous way, because we are being put in these boxes way too much by the people around us, and the world seems to forget quite often how diverse we are and how much we can be everything we possibly want. And it's and I think that's the biggest thing, being alone, being on my own and in nature teaches me that I realize how large I am as as a being in myself, and it's very lovely. I really, really recommend it. And listen to some music or bring a book even. Just, that's a friend. Like music and books can always be a friend. Mm-hmm. And then just go somewhere and learn yourself again. It's so important and it's so nice.
I mean, you've spoken often in the past about your kind of interest in this area, the environment, climate. You're well known for that. Faye and I both saw you speak in Glasgow at the COP26 summit. You actually appeared on a panel with Faye up there, which was a great talk. I wondered how you found that experience of being there in Glasgow for that event, if you got to meet some people that you found inspiring, and what you took away from that experience.
I met you.
Getting to meet Faye, yeah.
Yes, and she's a very inspiring woman, and it was it's been amazing because we've met a few times also since then, and it's very nice to gain new friends, and also now you, Greg, within this world where we understand each other, and it gives you hope rather than making you upset with how far we are from. But we are getting closer, so yes. I'm keeping hopeful. It was wonderful. I never expected COP26 to be any event to kind of change the world because we're quite far from reaching into the core of the problem, but we are inspiring all the people that we need to bring into the team. I feel like we need to go through a big process of making activism really sexy again, because it's so sexy. It's the sexiest thing in the world, to care. It's so beautiful. And it's our purpose, definitely, as a humankind. If you're wondering why you're here on this world, it's definitely to care about every single thing. But yes, it was inspiring. It was just a whole day, beautiful day of meeting people that were lovely, that cared, that did big projects, small projects, all equally important and contributing to this beautiful battle we are engaging in. And it was just the best day. I felt like a dog, like an excited dog who just had a whole day where you met amazing people who cared, and you regained faith in humanity. For me, it was very much like that. And every single person I looked at and shook hands with inspired me. I loved every single soul I saw that day, and it was amazing. But I feel like it's that's what we need to do first now, is to kind of invite people in, especially the people who doesn't understand the language that we use when we talk about this, that doesn't connect with how the world, how politicians talk about global warming, to inspire all of us to kind of join in more with open arms rather than with anger. Inspiring. I loved it.
Do you think, you mentioned activism there, like obviously the sort of youth activism movement around the climate issue gained so much traction in like 2019 and in the years since. Do you think that's the single thing that will create the biggest changes, if we all try and basically elevate the voices of those, of activists, people that are really knowledgeable on this subject and really invigorated and passionate and can make that change? Are we listening, are we being directed by the wrong people right now?
It depends, because I feel like some people's task is to simply inspire, to talk about something in a way that especially young people understand and connect with, so they grow up with a completely different view of life and how to behave and how to be better than our parents or ancestors. And it's a very important part of this whole thing. But I feel like every single person has their own task, and what I hope is that nobody gets lost into thinking that we have to ever be led by one person to do something important, that we can all lead ourselves, we can all do big and small things, try our best. We don't all have to be Greta Thunberg. We can all just be, because the world was destroyed by individuals one by one, who threw all that plastic in the ocean, who drove their cars, and it's all done by individuals, and it can all be fixed by individuals. It can only be fixed by individuals, because there's no magic invention or machine that can go and fix everything. We have to pick up all the plastic ourselves from the beach. Like, we have to do a lot of the things with our own hands and with our own personal choices. And to me, that's the biggest, most important key thing with global emergency. the only way is that we all contribute as individuals by changing the way we live and just try to live more aware and respectful, like we should, like we're meant to do, and not just be here on this planet reckless and careless for our surroundings and the species. It's so terrible the way we've behaved for so many years as a species. Is heartbreaking. So it's kind of about saving the soul of humankind, like who are we if we are ruining everything we touch. But yeah, the power of the individual, the more the people know that the power lies with the people, the more we can do. And I guess, demanding change, because if we all stop buying stuff from H&M, I guess, we have a lot of things to fix first. People are starving, people are poor. Before, because it's expensive often to live more in tune with nature, sadly. So I know there's a lot of steps we have to do before it's easy for everyone to change the way they live. It's not as simple always, but do what you can. That's the biggest thing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you feel, we're talking a moment about like your creativity and how this is, it's appeared in your art throughout the years, but how do you feel just as like a young citizen about the issue, as in like you've inherited this, like you call it a heartbreaking kind of situation, like, as a young citizen, how do you feel about the fact that you've kind of been handed this situation and it's kind of like, oh, okay, so we've got to deal with it, or we're part of the generations that have got to deal with it. Does that feel unfair to you? I
don't know the word unfair. I think I believe at least that, people often change too late. It's very in our nature to realize something is wrong almost before it's too late to save it or to change it. It's sadly, it seems to be sadly a huge part of the way we live, that we're just made like that. We often don't see the problem before it's too late, and I guess we are lucky because we didn't go through, or a lot of people in the Western world at least. But that's another issue I won't hop into today. But we didn't have to live through wars. Women are much safer now. It's legal to be gay in way more countries. So there's a lot of things I'm grateful that the people before us have fought for. The way they've fought for the underdogs of the world, and the way we can live off of that now and continue to fight. So I don't feel like it's unfair. I feel like it's sad and ridiculous and very stupid. But I don't feel like it's unfair because there's a lot of things the people before us have fought for that I'm really grateful for today, that I am a very example of, that I can enjoy the battles they've fought before us. And people have been fighting for the environment too for years. And we're just continuing. It's not something that started now. Activism has existed in this world for a long, long time. I don't know, it's a very complicated question, but I understand. And if I choose to be angry, and if I choose to make a wall between like us and them, I feel like that also contributes to some kind of problem that we don't really need. It takes away the focus from something that we can create that is uniting and good, and something we can only accomplish as a team. So I feel like for me at least, it's better to just be understanding and figure out how to communicate this problem to everyone in a way that includes everyone and that engages everyone. Because we all need to be told things in different words to really understand what's going on.
I think that's why musicians can be so powerful in communicating not just this, but all sorts of different issues to their audiences, because you understand your audiences, and by the very nature of it, they've come to you because they like your voice, they like what you say, they like your words. So there's a unique position in which you can communicate ideas to people who their ears are already open for what you're going to say. But even so, it can be quite a difficult task, because art lives in one place and then reality kind of lives in a slightly different place sometimes, and those two things are very close together for some artists and very far apart for some artists. So do you find that speaking with your audience about nature and these kind of issues, works well with your art, or do you have to keep it in a different place in your mind, do you think?
Well, I think it works well. I think it comes very natural. But it also comes from a place where I'm also figuring things out myself. I don't claim to know it all. And I'm still, it's hard to really find your own opinion on things. Because the world means so much about everything, and it pushes you so hard to mean something about everything. And sometimes I just want to say that, why do we all have to mean something about everything? Do we all have to mean anything about everything all the time, all of us? Is that really necessary, But still, when it comes to like the important building blocks of our world, I guess it's a different cause. But you know what I mean? It's a very huge thing.
Sometimes I get so exhausted of having to have an opinion, and I think I just don't need to have an opinion on everything.
Yeah, that's good. I think that often, and I choose my things. And when I don't know, I say, well, I don't know enough about this yet to know what I mean, and I'll answer you in a year. It's okay to search and figure out and do wrong and then try again. Because I think that for me, it's made it much easier to get involved with things, with political matters, because I'm not afraid to regret or learn or change, because that's the fun part, But yes, it comes natural to talk about the things I care about, but in an open way, because you need to talk about things in a way with respect, like you're not preaching to people, because obviously you aren't, and you only want to inspire, or maybe even it's for myself. I talk about it, and I see. I don't know, but it comes very natural to me.
It's something we've talked about so often on the podcast. Is like, an artist can be interested in this area, but not want to express that in their art. And conversely, for others, it's about this sort of journey to finding a way to express it really directly in their art, because they feel like almost nothing else matters. And both things are obviously completely okay. And it's just, I feel like more and more artists are maybe having that dialogue with themselves, and like kind of, having an internal conversation of being like, can I write about this issue? And there are some artists that would say, I can't write a song about the climate crisis. It doesn't come naturally, or I can't find the words. And for others, it's just, yes, of course, it comes naturally.
Yeah, but it's a very interesting thing. But I hope that people just do what feels natural, because there's always, people need to hear so many different things. And whatever you choose to write about or do in this world, you are in some way important.
Completely. And even if you say you do like a really pumping, upbeat pop song, then that's like, maybe an activist puts that on, enjoys that music, it kind of pumps them up for their day and like helps them carry on to have a bit of escapism and enjoyment through that, rather than this like endless trudge.
Because then the song becomes like nature.
Yeah.
Which is also important.
Yeah.
You mentioned the sort of activism earlier. Have you been on any demonstrations? Have you been kind of, is that something you're keen to do in the future, or not your scene? Or
no, I've been to many. Demonstrations, mostly like a lot of environmental, a lot of feminist, a lot of pride. What do you call it in English? Pride. We call it trains. We walk in a train, but like parades.
Yeah.
And a lot of like anti-meddling with the Middle East, because that's horrible.
Yeah.
Then it's but that's again another really big topic. But I've gone to a lot. I really like the energy around them, but with the years it's getting more and more difficult, because I'm being more and more overwhelmed by the anxiety of being around so many people. So it's not the same for me anymore as it used to be, but I've done a lot of it in my life, because it used to really inspire me, but now it makes me a bit more stressed. So I've figured out that my part is now to do something else.
Completely. I used to be so drawn to protests and demonstrations, just loving the energy of just saying no to things that aren't right, and just people coming together, all the talks that people do are so inspiring, just the energy around all of those people coming together to want a better place, or whatever the issue is.
I wondered how you felt like, because you've been somebody who's been really involved in this and engaged with this issue for a number of years. Presumably you've kind of been invited to more and more events. You're speaking to more and more artists, meeting others within the community. Does it feel? How has that felt? Does it feel like you're part of a growing community of people that care about this within music?
Yeah, it does. And it's been, I've really noticed a change, because I think in 2012, when I released, or someone, I don't know who, released one of my songs on the internet, that kind of started this whole journey. I remember already then talking about nature and the way I feel about it, and kind of being looked upon, especially in Norway, as like, okay, she's like a hippie, and like, okay, she's that kind of person, which devalued my words and the emergency I felt they had, and also the depth and strength and spirituality, my words to me, and what they symbolized in how I feel about, humankind and the world and nature. And it was very weird, and I felt like there was little openness back then around this topic, and it was really strange. And now it's so much simpler. It's a language people understand way more than before, and I find it so inspiring, and it's my favorite thing maybe about my journey as an artist, or no, as a being that coexists with other people, that I've really noticed the open-mindedness around this topic has grown, and it's the most exciting to me when it grows outside the borders, like beyond the hippies, beyond the artists. My favorite thing is to talk to people who I know are a part of the problem, and see what they think, and discuss and try to affect people outside of my circle, if that makes sense.
Outside of the bubble.
Yeah.
And that's what I've been doing the last 2 years, more to talk, to engage more with the people I feel we need to recruit, rather than people who are already apart.
Yeah.
I have a hole in my stockings. My toe just came out
through.
And I was terrified. Help me. So cold.
Who are those people in your life? Like, just people you encounter whilst you're going about your life, or are they friends and family? Those people that are sort of not within the existing kind of bubble, if that makes sense.
Well, aside from every single person I meet, I always end up talking about this.
Yeah.
I guess big companies. I'm talking a lot to, because I've been, there's this boat company called Hurtigruten in Norway, which is horrible. They've been traveling around the coast of Norway with tourists with this big, horrible
like a cruise
ship,
and
it's horrible. And I've been talking a lot to them, wondering when they're gonna make a change. An exciting change is actually happening, which is about time. Because Norway has so much money, so they should be able to, or I know it maybe sounds naive, because obviously I know nothing about anything of that, but it should be easier to make important changes. It's so disappointing, but yes. So like talking to also companies and talking to people that just do something completely different. And you see it already. I talk to a lot of people who own hotels. Because I'm trying to figure out what hotels can do, what they're actually doing, and who is doing that and more. So learning more about how the real world actually is, and what is what I can expect and what I should expect from, because I spend so much of my time in hotels, and so it's an important thing for me to actually to learn and put pressure on the places I stay with my band, and support with money, because I live in a suitcase or in a hotel all the time. But things like that.
Yeah, it's great that you kind of reach across. No, it doesn't. It's actually very practical what you're describing.
Yeah, but it's like, small things that makes me it makes me more excited to talk to people that doesn't understand yet.
A lot of the time, like in music, artists are making music that reflects the times that we live in. And right now, if you were writing about the climate, you'd be writing about the situation in a certain way. But I wondered if, to put your kind of like optimistic hat on, and you imagine yourself writing songs in 10 years' time, what kind of world would you like to be writing songs about?
I think I would like to write about a world that I would feel comfortable leaving. Because now I'm not comfortable leaving this earth yet, because I know there are so many things undone and unfinished and untold and unfixed. So I would like to be able to write about the world that would be comfortable to leave. And also the people who rule the world now, that somehow have been chosen by the people. But then again, our options aren't always that great. I don't trust any of those hands to carry the world through. So I hope in 10 years' time, at least, the people who we choose as our leaders have capable and warm and understanding hands that I would feel comfortable leaving this earth to. And I already feel very inspired by the younger generations, and the way that they will live and teach their kids. Because whatever happens, nature will never die. Maybe our species die, and the only planet with a intellectual life suddenly has no intellectual life, unless the IQ of the world kind of grows without us here. Maybe the Mother Earth is much cleverer than we could ever imagine, but I don't know what kind of world. It's hard to think too far ahead, because there's so much in the now to write about first. But at least I hope that we see that the things we did now, the things people sacrificed their lives for, people who protect the forests and they sacrifice their own lives in certain situations to protect what's left of this sacred earth. And I hope that we'll see in 10 years' time that the small and big things we did helped, and we see progress. And then the only thing that makes sense is to keep going and keep doing the same, keep improving and getting better, keep pushing and demanding change, and then promise ourselves as a human, as in our own humankind, to never return to these old tracks of old ways of life, to never ruin something so perfect again. Or I hope so. So it's the only thing I ask for. It's just that we'll see a bit of change, and that we see that it's working, and that we have to just continue. And maybe one day it will seem like we have relearned or finally mastered the art of coexisting.